don't know. I've been to the tropical islands. That's mostly where I go.
Why were you in Germany?
I was in the service.
You in the army?
Mm-hmm.
Were you with Daddy? Or y'all were in separate places?
No, I didn't leave no babies over there.
No. So y'all never like were in the same thing. So wait, what army were you in? Because now I know it's different armies, right? Were you like flying, or were you in the water, or were you on the land?
On the land.
You're on the land. So what is that? The military.
That's the army.
That's the army. Oh.
The Navy's on the water. Marines are land.
Okay. How long were you in the army?
Just, what was it, 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was then. And I wanted to go to Germany. I wanted to go to Europe. I wanted to get out of the country just to see someplace different.
So you signed up for the army?
So I signed up for Artillery Europe, so that they have to send you to Europe.
So you were
that's what you signed up for. Otherwise, they have to let
keep you in the United States or something.
They can't keep you in the United States. They had to let you go to Europe because that's the contract that you signed with.
Wait. So, how old were you?
I was a teenager.
Like 19?
I don't think I was. Probably about 17.
You said I want to go see Europe. Y'all gonna send me to Europe. I'm going in the army.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! What did your parents? What did Grandma say?
She came down and signed the papers because I was too young to sign the papers.
Grandma said, "Yo, I'll see you later." Oh my God, that's crazy. What did your dad say?
I don't remember. I don't think he said anything. But
wow.
I enjoyed Europe. Like I said, I almost stayed there. I almost got out there. Mm-hmm. You had to let them know 6 months ahead of time. And I wasn't too sure. So that's, if I could have made a last minute decision,
mm-hmm.
I would have probably stayed in Europe. And a lot of people did that. They got out of the service and stayed there, I had everything down. I had a girlfriend down there. She had a house. She had a job. I wasn't worried about getting a job. I forgot what the story was, but I knew I could get a job. But I just wasn't sure if I wanted to stay. It was borderline, and you had to let them know 6 months ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I ended up coming back. But then I had some friends of mine who were stationed down there with me.
So you broke up? Wait a minute. What about her? What about her in the house? You just broke up with her and came back to America?
No, she had her own house,
Yeah, so you just left her in her house?
Yeah, I had no choice. They understand that.
That you have to go to America?
No, we used to keep in contact. I used to write her and she used to
Yeah, like why didn't she come here?
Well, what had happened...
Why didn't you go back there?
At the time, I couldn't afford it, I just got here, had to get a job and all that. But what had happened, my buddy brought his girlfriend back over here from Germany.
Aww.
But he was stationed in Kentucky where you can't have that mixed marriages and stuff.
What year is this?
Oh, I don't remember, back in the 60s maybe. But anyway, she couldn't go where he was at.
Yeah.
So she stayed with, my parents and I, Mm-hmm. I still live with my mother and father now.
Uh-huh.
So, I explained it to them, and so they let her stay there.
What state were y'all living in?
New York.
Whew.
So,
y'all going to Harlem? Y'all was going to the jazz clubs? Did you ever go to the Cotton Club?
I don't think so. I think I've passed it by, but I never actually went
inside? Oh, man.
Anyway, she stayed there with us for quite a while. I'm trying to think something happened. And she moved. I don't remember where she moved to, but then I lost contact with her. And I lost contact with him. But she was doing all right. And then I know another lady, 2 of them, that came from Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And came back went to New York.
Yeah.
And last time I heard from them, both of them were doing well.
Good.
One of them, man, you could tell she was doing well with the clothes she had on.
She was snazzy.
Yep. But she used to run a hotel there. She was a manager of a hotel there. And
in New York?
No, here in Jamaica.
Oh.
She was a manager of one of the hotels there.
When was the first time you went to Jamaica? Like, how old were you?
I was probably in my 20s. I'm guessing.
Oh, you went from Europe to Jamaica?
Mm-hmm.
You was just outie.
I might have been old. I might have been older than that, because I used to go to St. Thomas all the time before I went to Jamaica. I used to like St. Thomas, and I used to go down there as much as I could.
Oh wow.
Yeah, St. Thomas, they call it the Virgin Islands. It was a Virgin Island too. When I first started going down there. And, I enjoyed that. One of the ladies that we sort of came up as teenagers in New York, but her people were from St. Thomas, and her mother went back down there to live. I guess they still had property in a house and all that. And then she went back down there. So the first time I went there, I think it was the first time I looked her up. And then after that, every time I went down there, I'd go and call on her or something. She got married, and she's always complaining about her husband. It didn't sound like he was giving her much help financially, because she was always telling me that she had a house. She had bought her own house way up on the hill.
Ooh, some powerful
women.
Sit
sit out on her back terrace and just look over everything. See all these other islands out there. You could just see everything. So she married him. I figured he just married her. So,
Yeah.
Because I know every time I talk to her, we talk pretty often on the phone. And she looked like she ain't getting no help. She's telling me this needs to be done and that needs to be done. I gotta get some money to do this. I said, I was thinking to myself, where's your help,
Yeah. So when you were going to Europe and you were in the army, was Daddy in the army at the same time? Or did he go in after you went in?
I think he went after, if I remember right.
And he was a nurse in the army though, right?
I don't know what he was. I really don't.
You know who Joan Crawford is? Or Betty Davis? That is what y'all feud seems like. Like, it just goes back so many years. You're in the army for sake. Like, y'all didn't have a... Okay, when you come back out the army and you're traveling the world and you go back to Grandma's house, isn't he there? And you don't have a conversation about, like, the army, what you've been through, what you've seen. He understands.
We never did talk that much.
Y'all didn't share a room? Did y'all ever share a room? Y'all always had separate rooms?
It pissed me off, when we bought my grandmother's house. My father bought it.
Yeah.
There was 2 bedrooms.
The yellow house? The yellow house?
Yeah, the one, yeah. On Rockingham.
On
Rockingham, on 19th Avenue.
Oh, this is a different house. Because the yellow house was on Rockingham. Okay,
that was my house. I bought that for her.
Okay.
But anyway.
It was a house before that house.
One before that.
Okay, Grandma.
And there was 2 bedrooms upstairs. And I figured I was the oldest. I figured I'm going to have my own bedroom.
Yeah.
My father gave Robbie his own bedroom. And me and my other brother had to share a bedroom. Because I was always very neat. I liked everything neat.
You and Alfred.
Not Alfred, just me. Alfred was a mess and Robbie was even worse.
No, you and Alfred shared the room.
Yeah, me and Alfred had to share the room.
Y'all had bunk beds?
No. The rooms were big enough for,
2 single beds?
We never had bunk beds.
So what order does it go? Is you, Alfred, and then Daddy?
Yeah.
Okay. How far apart are y'all?
Me and Alfred are a year apart. don't know. I don't know how old Robbie is.
I don't know either. I believe he's 73. I think he's 70. No, his birthday just passed, so he's 74.
It's close to 10 years, 9 or 10 years.
When's your birthday?
February 5th.
Oh, wow. You were born around Valentine's. That is interesting, though. You were just like, listen, I can't deal with you. I would talk to Alfred. He got some sense. How did Alfred? Did he ever go into the army?
Mm-mm.
He did. Was Alfred a hippie?
Mm-mm. Alfred was he was like a how you say a working person.
Oh, like business,
He had a job.
like corporate, like
Well,
suitcase.
he's still supposed to be in school, and he had a full-time job. And I forgot how my mother found out that he wasn't going to school, that he was going to work. So she got on his case about it. I think she got to his boss. But anyway, he used to be a good worker.
Yeah.
So they let him work like on the weekends, Saturday, Sunday or something. Anyway, part-time, so that he could finish going to school. And I don't know if he ever finished going to school. Like somehow he quit. But then he went into business for himself in the plumbing. He was a plumber. And he opened up his own business.
So do you know how Grandma met Grandpa? I never met him, so how that Grandpa? No. Their love story is a mystery.
You don't think about that at the time, how people met.
I know. This is why I ask it now. So, was your father ever in the army?
No.
So you were the first of the family. What did your father do?
He worked at a place called National Screens. He used to take us down there. National Screens were like the movie companies that send the films to the different movies and put out all the pictures, the advertisement.
Oh,
Because we
wow.
used to go down there and get pictures from the latest movies, and that was the greatest thing. We could go to school with these pictures from, I don't know, I can't even think of the name of the movies, but some of the latest
Whatever
movies.
happened to Baby Jane?
Yeah, whatever.
That is my movie. Joan Crawford, man. So what did Grandma do? Was she a seamstress? What did she do?
She was a housewife.
She was just a housewife?
Mm-hmm. She didn't work no job. I mean, she did. She used to sneak off to go to work and do housework for these rich people. Cause she used to take us with her sometime. I never forgot the Van Puttons. And there was about 3 families that she used to do housework, house cleaning.
Yeah.
And sometimes she'd take us with her, to help her out. One of them had a big place out in the country, and they paid me and my father to paint their house out there. Because we used to go out on the weekend and paint, stay out there and keep until we painted the house. No, she was just basically a housewife, but she's like, do housework for other people.
Yeah.
My father didn't want her to work, so she used to have to sneak off and go to work, and she used to tell us, don't tell nobody.
Yeah.
And we got to know the people that she was, working for, and they were all nice people, they were rich. One of the guys had something to do with anybody that came from a Latin country trying to come to this country, through the
Like immigration?
Through immigration, yeah. They had to go through him. The seniors, his name is Senior. But, and they used to pay us to do stuff around the place, She used to say, "Oh, we can only pay 50 cents an hour," but you got to remember how far back that was. And you know, we'd work in hell. If you made 10 or 15 bucks, that was a lot of money back then. A lot of money.
Did Grandma make your like Halloween costumes and stuff?
I remember dressing up one time on Halloween.
What were you?
A girl. And that was the only time I remember dressing up on Halloween. We had had my mother's stuff on.
What's your favorite memory of Grandma?
Oh, I don't know.
All right, whatever your top 5.
I really can't say. You know, she was a good mother, and my father was a good father. You know, sometimes you think about those beatings you got, and you know, when you think back on it, I said, you know, every beating that we ever got from my father was for something that we had no business doing. You know.
Yeah.
Other than that, my mother beat you with an iron cord or whatever she could
Whatever she could get her hands on.
And they said, you better cry because if you don't cry, she's going to get your father to beat you.
So who was born first, Alfred or Douglas? Right?
Alfred or Douglas?
No, or Michael. Michael's first, right? Out of your children?
Out of my children, it was Douglas was the oldest, then Alfred, and then Mark.
Mark or Michael?
Mark.
So when did Michael come?
Oh, that was out of wedlock.
Well, he's a human. When did he come in the series?
Oh, in that series?
That's a human, though.
I don't even remember.
How you gonna be like that?
He's
a human.
one, for sure.
The shade.
Mm-hmm.
That was so shady,
Because
Uncle.
I don't even remember the birthdays, you know.
That seems to run in the family. But Daddy's been sending me birthday cards for the last few years, so. So who made you an uncle first?
I don't know. That was... I don't know. I don't remember.
So, how did you find out about me? Was it just some random day we were at Grandma's house? And you're like, oh, there go them children. there go that man kids over there.
I knew about Joe before that, and then he came out there. You know, Robbie used to live off of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And something happened and she went back there. And I guess that house was a mess. And she told Robbie he had to move. And she was going to sell the house. Because she let him have it, and he was supposed to be sending her rent. And I don't know, somehow she wasn't getting the rent. And she went back there to see what was going on. I remember that. And Claudia was with her, my brother's daughter. And she said, your mother was crying. She said, because my mother was very neat and clean.
Yeah.
Neat and clean. And that house was, she said the house was such a mess. She said, your mother just broke down and cried.
Mm.
And then she told Robbie he had to move. She was going to sell the house.
Is this the yellow house or a different house?
That's the only one house he had in Queens.
Oh, this is a different house in New York.
This is in New York. So she told him he had to move, that she was going to sell the house. So Melvina was a mutual friend of ours, but she was in the real estate. Anyway, make a long story short, she put the house up for sale and sold. So what did Robbie do? He comes out here, move in with her next door. And that's, that's always what he did. He just sort of lived off of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to keep track of her checkbook because my mother had a tendency to write out checks and not balance it off.
Mm-hmm.
So every now and then I get a hold of her checkbook and make sure everything is balanced off. After he came out here, all of a sudden, I see all this stuff being paid out of my mother's checkbook that had nothing to do with my mother. This is Robbie's bills.
Mm-hmm.
And I said something to her about it. I said, Mom, why are these checks written out? These are all Robbie's bills. But she never want to see you, arguing and that kind of stuff. So I let it go. But also, all he was doing was just living off of her.
Yeah.
And everybody in the family knew anything happened to my mother, Robbie's in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother, what happened? Something happened. That's why I think she sold the house in New York. And everybody thought I talked her into selling the house in New York, which I didn't. But the check disappeared, I knew Robbie got it. And I'm trying to think of what else happened. I know she left that house and she went, where did she go? Or did she die in that house? But I know Robbie just kept, wherever my mother was, that's where Robbie was. Because he just living off of it. And like I said, I started seeing the checkbook, all these checks written out for his debts.
Yeah.
And that kind of pissed me off. But my mother, once he argued, she didn't care nothing about the money.
Yeah.
Then when she died, everybody knew at the time, everybody used to talk about it. Anything happened to your mother, Robbie's in trouble. Sure enough, he bought a house. That's what it was. My mother got some money, but she never got it. And all of a sudden, Robbie bought a house. And he talked about he sold his Radio Shack stock. He didn't sell enough stock to make a down payment on a house.
Mm-hmm.
And Radio Shack stock was nothing. At that time, I was dealing with stocks and stuff. Radio Shack stock was nothing. So he bought a house. Then he took her out of her house, that's what it was, and moved her in with him in his house. Same thing, so he can take care of her money. So she stayed there until, something happened and she went in the hospital. And she had a dementia, Then all of a sudden he didn't want to call me up. Could you put her back in the other house? And I think that Roz was moving in with him at the time, somewhere around about that time. But Roz, I had to give her credit. She did take good care of my mother. She did do that. I cannot knock her. Anyway, my mother died. But she went in the hospital.
But why would you want to put her in for him? Why would you want to put her in a different house where she needs 24-hour care? That's very.
I'm trying to think of what the situation was when she bought that house. I think she was all right when she bought the house. When she originally got it. Everything went downhill afterwards. And like I said, Robbie had taken all her money, and that's when he bought a house. And I think he was still getting the money because when she died, now there's nothing coming in. Robbie lost his house. moved into an apartment. That's where he's at now, in that apartment somewhere. He had an apartment out here. It was real nice off of Airport Highway. Then he moved back in the inner city there somewhere. I don't know where. I ain't never been there.
So
He
when
admitted it. You know, we got to talking one time. He admitted it. He said, yeah. He said, I thought I'd get her money back, but she died before I could get her money back. You know. But he admitted it. I said, you know, as long as you do. Because first thing when my mother died, he calls me up. I need $6,000. It was supposed to be for the funeral parlor. So I wouldn't give Robbie $6,000. I went and wrote out a check to the funeral parlor. You know, I paid for everything.
Mm-hmm. Where's she buried at?
She's buried in New York with my father. And don't ask me where he's buried. It was my grandmother and my father and my mother all in the same grave. But I thought about that a couple times. I said, I don't even know what cemetery they're at. And in fact, there's a couple of people out here. The guy that came over to me,
Mm-hmm.
his father, he and I were really good friends. His father died. He's buried out here somewhere. And his mother died. They're buried side by side. I remember that. And the guy that spoke to me, he used to be a little gangster. I almost didn't recognize him because he ain't that old and he looked real old.
Mm-hmm. He ain't that old. Well, now I'm ready to go inside.